Welcome everybody to my presentation on how storytelling can help you to create clarity in your work. Um, I think questions can be asked during the presentation in the Q&A, but also maybe in the chat or afterwards. Always good to do. And how better to start a presentation on storytelling with a nice story. At least I hope it's a nice story. Um, Once upon a time, and not so long ago, and maybe near an area where most of you live or some of you live, there was this house, an old house at the end of the road near the old willow tree. And if you looked at the house, you would see it was built like a lot of those houses are built in that part of the country with red painted walls, white windows, a nice chimney with some smoke from the heating, and surrounding the house there was a garden. And the garden was growing some vegetables, some fruits like um, apples. I would say bananas, but that's not fitting in this story. Um, and in the house or around the garden, there was also a pond. In the pond and around the pond, you could see animals like fish in the pond, and outside of the pond there were chickens, some sheep and goats walking around. And in that house, there lived a family, and the woman in the family called Lina. And Lina, together with her husband Philip, they lived there for a couple of years now, and they had two kids, Ramus and Raza, a boy and a girl, around 8 years old. And every morning when the alarm clock went, Lina and Philip, they stood up and they took care of the kids because they had to go to school, pack all their stuff. Um, and well, when the kids were put off to school, then really the hard work started. And well, before we continue, let's first do a quick introduction and also share a little bit of the background of my presentation. Um, so who am I? I'm Danny Higler. I'm an agile DevOps coach working for a company called Humanity, currently at an assignment at booking.com, which fits because I like to travel. Not as far as most of the booking travels go, but into Europe with a caravan I like to be. I'm living in the Netherlands. I'm Dutch. With my wife, two kids. In my spare time, I like to play games, paint miniatures, and also games and miniatures are really strongly related to stories. When I was young, I started my career in the Navy, the Royal Dutch Navy, as an engineer. Later on, I discovered software because hey, clean hands, that's a good thing, and did a lot of things. Worked from a developer, being CTO, project management, getting my own startups. They practically all failed, except one, which was relatively successful. But I learned a lot. And after last 8 years, from now on, I'm working as a coach and helping organizations, teams, and people to thrive in this age of technology and AI coming up, with DevOps being a real big part of that. So mostly in my day-to-day work, agile coaching, DevOps coaching, helping technical teams in optimizing their workflow. Um, just a short disclaimer before we continue. I'm an engineer by heart, mechanical, but later software. I have a passion for people and stories, and I'm not a neuroscientist. So some of the following information, which I might tell you in the rest of my presentation, might not be scientifically absolutely correct, or it might not be complete, but it works for me and for the story. So that's the disclaimer I'm putting off here. Yeah, let's move on. So well, I always like stories. And if you look around you, we're always surrounded by stories, even from, I think, the first signs of human behavior, where the cave drawings already telling stories about how the hunt went and how people lived together. Later on, when the first writings were discovered or created on stones, engraved in there are also stories being told. And these days, by reading books, ebooks or normal books, by playing video games, I mean, the best video games are really based on great stories, and they take you into it. Movies, theater plays, dramas, stories are all around us. Sitting with friends and family on a dinner, with a campfire or without a campfire, but sitting on a table, sharing food and stories, that always works. So stories are a really big part of our lives, I think for everybody, except not where I work or used to work. There were some things they called stories, like user stories, and they were Oh, usually something like this. As the director of Acme, he would like to have the same animations as our competitor MK before next week so it can be presented to the board. That's might not be a very good user story, as you all might recognize. Or as a Scrum team, we need to attend the daily Scrum stand-up, so we won't miss any updates from our Scrum Master. And this is one I really saw on the board someday in the past 8 years. And well, another one. As a product owner, I need to have a system to avoid double reservations, so the company won't lose money on compensating our users. Also, not really a compelling story that drives me and that energizes me as a developer to build really great solutions. So in the past 12 years, while working with teams, also as a developer and a CTO, what do I experienced? That the work we're picking up is often unclear or incomplete. It's most of the time not really client focused, but really solution focused. And often it's a small part of the whole. That team creates a bit, that team creates a part, that team creates the last part of that value stream, but yeah, we're not actually aware how they're connected. If we have any requirements, they're thrown over the wall of confusion and with the message, here, go fix. I remember when I worked as a developer and I started, literally somebody putting 3 orders on my desk saying, hey, see you in 3 months. Good luck. um, I just saw the chat and I'm trying not to pay attention to that. Luckily, it's solved. What also do we see? A missing context and a clear problem to solve often prevents us from delivering a high quality solution. If we don't have a problem to solve and we miss the context, we might not end up by delivering the best possible solutions. And deadlines and ad hoc work just being thrown at the teams often have a higher priority above the discovery for new work. What do we need to do? What will really add value? Or hey, what is the best thing to approach this? The best approach to this new situation. So what did I realize? If you tell stories, you can get a more complete view. And stories by telling compelling stories about the work we need to do help us to discover risks, identify any dependencies, but also very important, identify different paths and solutions that otherwise might have stayed hidden if you just followed the proposed solution. So creating stories around work really help us to find new ways of creating that solution. If you do that as a team, it also creates better understanding. And I often also say to my teams, hey, if you use story points or story poker, planning poker, I don't really care about the numbers you come up with or the velocity. It's important for some organizations, for some less, but having those discussions together. And if you combine it within a story, you can really make it come to life and create that understanding. So deeper understanding of the need and the value of the work. Shift left. Get that feeling of value and understanding really at the beginning of the work. And you can apply storytellings on all levels of the organization. If you're really on a portfolio level, yes, you can tell stories. And then would be probably more confined and detailed if you go lower to the organization. But stories really truly help and they can be part of each other. But also telling stories if you want to spread a message about strategy, or this is the direction we're going. This is our tactics in challenging the market's problems. So storytelling can be applied on all levels of an organization. A small addition here that also during the last year, with the rise of AI, Gen AI, and there's also some presentations about it today, so I won't do a deep dive on this one, but just ask an AI bot to write a story seems easy. But also AI is missing context. Yeah? So if you use it, really feed it, create specific GPTs or co-pilots and feed them with the right information. So I would say aware is not the right word, but they understand or have at least the right context there. So AI gets you started, doesn't really help you to get a deeper understanding as a team yet. I often saw now product owners or product managers just asking ChatGPT to create a user story. And well, sometimes they made some sense. Sometimes they made no sense at all. But overall, they were still missing the context and the true understanding with the team. So feeding AI with proper stories generates improved results. As an example, if you want to do it, then also provide them with the examples of the outcome you would like to do. And if you're creating prompts to generate stories, which can be absolutely fine, but then go for mob or this co-prompting. Do it with a team, not as an individual, but really working together on those prompts helps you. And this is something I tried the last few months, actually, the co-prompting or the team prompting. And it's a fun exercise. And I would say it's almost as good as having a story together. So that's on the AI Rise there. So what's the thing with stories actually? It's well, they light up our brain. They connect to us, and we humans, we have the tendency to stick to stories more than just dry facts. Look at this car commercial. It's a happy family on the beach. Only one person is doing the heavy lifting, but okay. And it just, well, triggers the brain so much more than showing you all the information that also proves your family can be inside of that car, but it's different, right? Another one about coffee. I'm not sure if somebody recognizes this. This commercial here, it's George Clooney with some two other famous actresses. They tell a story. They say nothing about the coffee, just the feeling you get from that coffee, and you want to be part of that. So really, stories trigger also our emotions, and it makes us think and give us an idea of how that's what we want to do. So what's that with stories? And a colleague of mine once said, and I really like that metaphor or that quote: "The detour via the metaphor can be quicker." So it might feel sometimes like, hey, if you create a story around it, it might be a detour, but usually it's quicker and it brings more understanding. So how would you introduce storytelling in an organization? And well, some of these are actually some of the remarks I got. It's not a D&D club. Don't go starting with stories. We're not kids. Or, oh yeah, nice, good idea, Danny. Let's do that in the 10 minutes of the end of the planning. That doesn't really work. That was not the idea we had. So what did I do, and how did I try to make it work? Well, what I did is first find a story functionality that the team started, but it's not clear yet. So they started working on something, but they struggling with it. Hey, that could help us there. That's a nice start. Gather some people who would like to solve this: devs, product owners, SMEs, some people who would like to really understand this work. Build a story with them, then share that story and show the benefits of it, and repeat and make it bigger. So start small. And while doing that, there's actually some kind of structure in stories. And if you follow that structure, you will run into risks, dependencies, and possible plot twists. So the story part you see here, it's called The Mountain or The Hero. It really focuses on the journey of one hero and all the things it runs into. So let's see where we get here. So going back to our story, the wish of our hero, back to Lina. She has a hard day at work, and when she brings the kids to school, they drop them up. She has to go to her own work, and she works as a product manager somewhere at a big enterprise. And when she gets home, she has to cook dinner, and then she's tired, and she still has to do some other work or do a study. But their children, her children, also love stories. So they need them before they go to sleep, but she's really busy, so she doesn't have the time. And Lena came up with the ideas to create a device that generate unique bedtime stories for children and generate also images with that story like a real kid's picture book. This will help parents all over the world, and she will call the device the Storybook Animation Device, or SAD, which it also kind of is. And they're supporters, so people supporting it, they see the value and they can use the value. So this is also, if you're building a solution, what is the value? Who's profiting from it? In this case, the kids saying, yes, mother, we would also like to have some unique bedtime stories. And capital investment funds, so we truly believe in SAD and we will fund it. Some parents, I say, this is the next best thing since Netflix. It will give us so much more time to do important stuff like watching Netflix. And Acme AI says, well, our APIs can support SAD, so we offer your support for a small fee, of course. So every product has their supporters, and bring them in your story. And also, like if you apply this part to any stories, you we'll see it's almost, if you any Disney movie, any action movie, they follow this path roughly. Hey, but if there are supporters, there are also enemies. Risks, people who are not liking it, people who will be badly affected by it, or systems who will be badly affected by it. So the enemies of our hero. In this case, devices should not read stories to our kids. We should do that as parents. Or set might base the stories on existing content. How about some compensation? The authors. The stories might contain content not suited for kids. Every story needs to be reviewed, like a child protection organization. Or maybe even that set will be out of control, provide misinformation, and brainwash our kids by the AI skeptics. All risks we have to come up with, and we have to put in our story. So by building that story, we can also come up with the different enemies. And once we have the supporters and the enemies, the story goes on, and there will be some plot twists. Every good story has some plot twists. Like, for example, Seth produces stories which are okay and reviewed on the fly by another AI system. We tackle everything. Okay, not sure if this is the right thing to do, but hey, it's a happy twist. Or Seth spins out of control and starts creating H.P. Lovecraft-inspired stories and drawings. Not really good for bedtime, but yeah, interesting twist. Seth starts creating one-on-one copies of original content. Twists, my testing scenarios, what can I do with it? But also creating the different paths that could happen. So yeah, also a really important thing to come up with and to keep notice of. And well, once we have all this in place, then every story has an end, right? A happy end. Ta-da! Set is going to be a huge success. We're going to take over the world. All hardworking parents will be happy because there's some device reading stories to their kids. Or it can go the other way. That set will not be a success, and the enemies won, the risks won. So consider both scenarios when you're creating stories. And to close off, some ideas, some practices which you can apply in order to create stories, how you could facilitate that. So the most easy thing to do is sit down with a team, draw the path, which is also here, and I can share the slides afterwards. Start filling in the blanks, start filling in who's our hero, who are the supporters, who are enemies, etc. What are the twists? What's the disappointments which we run into? So start building that story. That's the most easy thing to do. Yeah, you can use AI to generate parts of that story. So ask for possible supporters, ask for possible enemies, keep feeding your GPT, keep having it with the right information, and some, well, useful information might come up here. In the past, I worked with a team and they said, well, let's just do a D&D style, Dungeon and Dragon style. We have a dungeon master who kind of know where the story is going. We get some dice, we get paper, and we start working on it. We start building the story together, also as a campaign. And if you're familiar with D&D, you might be know the checks, and they really use the checks to do the risk mapping and risk ordering, so prioritization on the risks. Now that's a thing you can do also. Another option you might have is here, go for story cubes. You can buy them in any toy store. Just throw the dice, throw the cubes. Some pictures will come up, and try to imagine what they can be. What supporters can they be? What enemies can they be? What can happen? So story cubes can really help you in your thinking. Just setting it up, be creative, have fun, and share those stories there. So just to close off, creating stories really can help you guiding your testing and development. Stories can grow, they can extend. So you can have one story being followed up by another story, being followed up by another story, and before you know it, you're actually creating a book of stories. Visualization really helps, creating images or drawings that really helps to bring your story across. Stories trigger creative thinking. Just coming up with those stories, and you will come up with scenarios you probably will not have thought of if you didn't do it. Follow the story path, facilitate it well, and share your story in the end with the company, the organization, the team, the SMEs. And that was it. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm so sorry we had some technical issues. So maybe next time, if you want to reach out on LinkedIn, find me, Danny Higler, or send me an email. Always good. And maybe we have some questions. No, I can see them. So the whole DevOps cycle can be considered as a different, um, oh, as a different chapters of a story. Yeah, that's actually a good one. Prompting as a team is more effective than alone with AI. Really true. Just start doing it. That's good advice. And a question from Niels: do you consider storytelling a skill that can be acquired? Some people are better than others at it. Yes, Niels, that's true, but it can be acquired. There are some nice trainings you can do. If you're on, I think I'm being spammed by it on Instagram with story cards, story decks, which will help you also to create stories. There are a lot of tools out there, and one person is really good at ex- telling stories, expressing them. Others are really better in coming up with new ideas. So as a team, you can always create nice stories, and you can train it. And the more you do it, like everything, the better you get at it. That's a good question. Coming, what would be really helpful for you to introduce that work is start looking at the world around you and see how many stories there are out there, and that everything can be told as a story. So if you practice that while commuting, in the train, there are people there, they make up great stories even by watching them or looking at them. In the car, you can see things around you, create stories, and once you start thinking in stories, it will become way easier for you as well to compile your work into stories. I think that's the number one tip. Just start looking at the world as stories. Thank you all. Thank you. Bye bye.